Hi everyone, this is Attorney Aaron coming to you from Indiana with another video. Let's get started.
This is the state versus Alexander Lane. Mr. Lane is charged with, and I'm going to have Ms. Freeman confirm after I read all the charges. He's charged with terroristic threats with the warrant number 2022 WA 06729, cruelty to children in the first degree, 2022 WA 06731, cruelty to children in the first degree, another count of that, 2022 WA 06735, another count of cruelty to children in the first degree, 2022 WA 06736. I also have a count of aggravated assault, 2022 WA 06728, another count of aggravated assault, 2022 WA 06737, aggravated assault, 2022 WA 06738, and aggravated assault, 2022 WA 06739. We also have pointing a pistol or aiming a pistol at another, 2022 WA 06730, another count of that same charge, 2022 WA 06740, 2022 WA 06741, pointing or aiming a pistol at another, and a final count of pointing or aiming a pistol at another, 2022 WA 06742. Was there a question? Okay, and I know I went a little bit out of order.
Here the judge has announced multiple charges. They're the same charge. It sounds like it was charged 4 different times. What we would have here is there's 4 victims, alleged victims. That's why it's charged 4 times for each of the same charge.
Paperwork that's in front of me,
Right.
you do have all of those charges. So representing the state is Ms. Cheryl Freeman. Representing Mr. Lane is Mr. Javerick Rogers. Ms. Freeman, do you waive your opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Rogers, do you waive your opening statement?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Ms. Freeman, you have the floor.
Thank you. Officer Alexander, would you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear and affirm that the testimony about to provide in the matter of State of Georgia versus Alexander Lane will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please tell us your name and how you're employed.
Officer Shaquille Alexander, Plain County Police Department.
How long have you worked with the Clayton County Police Department?
About 3 years.
Sir, were you working on April 18th of 2022?
Yes, ma'am.
On that particular day, did you respond to 5638 Riverdale Road?
Yes.
Is that in Clayton County?
Yes, ma'am.
What exactly is at that location?
Say Family Dollar. Well, the incident happened in the parking lot of the Family Dollar. It's a plaza.
Okay.
So there's a Family Dollar, a international grocery store, and a couple other stores.
When you arrived at that location, who did you speak with?
I spoke with the victim as well as Lane Alexander, who didn't really want to speak with me on that date as to what happened.
When you say that you spoke to the victim, is that Miss LaShondra Russian?
Yes, ma'am.
There were other victims in the case. Were those her children?
Yes, ma'am.
Were these small children?
Yes, ma'am.
Just so we're clear, did you have occasion at all to speak to any of her children?
The age that they were, I didn't speak with them, no, ma'am.
Okay. So they were all under the age of 10?
Yes, ma'am.
What did Miss Russian tell you that happened?
Miss Russian advised that she dropped her brother off to go inside of the Family Dollar and to get Pampers As she was waiting in the parking lot, she advised Mr. Alexander came to her vehicle and asked her for money. She advised to him that she didn't have any money, and then he asked her why was she waiting, in the car.
Here, folks, the prosecutor's asking an officer questions, and what we have here is double hearsay. However, in an initial hearing, a lot of times the rules of evidence are not as stringent as they would be in a normal trial. So I assume that's why the defense is not objecting to what's being said here. But it is double hearsay.
Car. She then explained to him why she was waiting in the car. She then advised that she doesn't know if her explanation to why she was in the car made him angry or agitated him, but he then quickly jumped to saying that I will shoot you in the face, B word. She said that she begged him not to because of her kids was in the car. She then advised that he raised his blue hoodie up and pulled the gun out and pointed it at her. She then, when she seen the gun pointed at her, she advised she drove straight and called 911. When she called 911, she advised that the male was wearing a blue hoodie, a black ski mask, and black jeans. When I came on scene, I seen that same person wearing a black ski mask, blue hoodie, and black jeans.
After getting that information from Ms. Russin, did you speak to the individual who fit that description that she had given?
Yes.
Was that individual Mr. Alexander Lane?
Yes, ma'am.
What did Mr. Lane tell you?
Mr. Lane did not give me any explanation as to why he was there or what his encounter was with Miss Russian.
Did he indicate whether or not he had a weapon?
Here, the defendant, in my opinion, as a criminal defense attorney, is doing the right thing. You should never speak to the police. It's just not a good advice to speak to them. Always ask for an attorney, and you'll come out better in the long run.
He did.
What did he say?
He said, when I approached him, he advised the weapon was in his pants pocket without a holster. Well, and his pants waistband without a holster. I'm sorry.
Were you able to retrieve the firearm?
Yes, ma'am.
Was that placed into evidence?
Yes, ma'am.
Where were Ms. Russing's kids seated in the vehicle?
In the back seat.
Were they still in the car when you got there?
Yes, ma'am. Shortly after I got there, her brother, who she dropped off into the Family Dollar, soon came out and was like, what was going on? So, but he was not involved in the incident.
Did he see anything regarding the incident?
No, ma'am.
Cameras out in the parking lot?
Say that one more time. I'm sorry.
Were there cameras in the parking lot?
Not that I'm aware of.
Were there any other witnesses as to what happened?
No, ma'am.
Officer, how were the children? How was the demeanor of the children when you got there?
kids were crying. But as I had another officer as well as my sergeant appear on scene, after my sergeant spoke with Miss Russian and her, kids, they were able to calm down.
Did Mr. Lane admit to pointing the gun at Miss Russian?
No, he did not.
Officer Alexander, I just want to be clear. You completed a warrantless arrest probable cause affidavit. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then you also completed a police report. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And this is just so we understand, because in the beginning, the judge read the charges, and she read several charges for cruelty to children in the first degree. Was it your intent, and I'm looking at your report also, for those to be cruelty to children in the third degree and not first degree?
Here, folks, you can tell that the officer's confused by the prosecutor's questions. Probably should have been some preparation done before the hearing with the officer and the prosecutor to clear that up. I'm not sure if the judge's reaction is due to him not answering the question. Maybe it'll flush out here.
That in your report, you indicated cruelty to children in the third degree.
It was supposed to be in the first degree, ma'am.
It's supposed to be in the first degree?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, let me ask you this, Officer Alexander. Since you're saying that it was supposed to be in the first degree, tell what is the basis for the cruelty to children in the first degree?
The mental state of the juveniles.
Okay. Did Ms. Russian indicate that she was in fear for her safety?
Yes, ma'am, she did. She advised that to me as well as on her written statement that she provided.
Also, Alexander, when you indicated that Mr. Alexander, and I believe you said B word, I'll shoot you in the face. Did Ms. Russian indicate if any of her kids heard that threat when it was made?
She did not advise if the kids heard it.
Did she say if there was anyone else around who heard the threat?
No, ma'am, she did not advise.
Thank you. No further questions.
Before you ask your question, Mr. Rogers, I just want to clarify, Ms. Freeman, did you ask the officer about whether the children saw the web? Did you said that? Did you ask him that?
No, Officer Alexander indicated he did not question any of the children because of their ages.
Okay, thank you.
Mm.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Rogers.
Thank you. Officer Alexander, and I guess a lot of questions have been asked. I know you said that you were unaware of any video. Did you ever ask whether or not there was any video available, like from family from the Family Dollar or any other businesses?
I did. I had my other officer that was on scene with me ask. Also, I did not observe any cameras on the outside. So
And the gun that we've been talking about, did Ms. Rushton ever describe the gun that she's saying that she saw?
she advised it was a black handgun. That's all she advised.
And as far as your conversations with everyone, are you wearing body camera at that time?
Yes, sir.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Lane was not interested. You did not have any conversation with him about the situation?
Correct.
And as you understand, the only interaction that's alleged to have occurred strictly with Ms. Rushton as far as the conversation and everything.
Yes, ma'am. I mean, yes, sir. I'm sorry.
That's the problem. Let's see. All right. No further questions at this time.
The defense attorney asks good questions to clear some stuff up there. Well done.
Do you have any redirect, Ms. Freeman?
No, Your Honor. State rest.
Mr. Rogers, do you have any evidence you'd like to present?
No, ma'am, just argument, Your Honor.
Ms. Freeman, do you have a closing argument?
It waives open.
Mr. Rogers?
Yes, ma'am. Your Honor, I got a couple of issues, I would say. Number one, I would be asking that the court would dismiss essentially every, and I'm trying to get clear on exactly what the list of charges is, but as I understand it, there's more than one aggravated assault. My position is that there should at most be one allegation of aggravated assault at this point. There's no indication that the firearms pointed at anybody other than Ms. Rushton based on the testimony that I've heard. That's the most I've heard alleged. Additionally, as it relates to the terroristic threats, and I think this is, I don't want to assume too much, but I think Ms. Freeman was asking her questions about that threat is uncorroborated. There's been no allegation that anyone else heard the threat. And a terroristic threat requires some corroboration other than the victim merely alleging that someone said something. So as it stands, as it relates to that charge, I'll be asking for a dismissal. Additionally, as it relates to the cruelty to children, honestly, I would ask that the court dismiss any version of cruelty to children at this point based on the fact that the testimony is insufficient. There's no, and I understand, with the presumption that the state would, or that the officer may have been operating on, but there's no testimony that the children either saw the gun or that whatever demeanor was observed was related to anything that had occurred involving or allegedly involving Mr. Lane. These are all presumptions at this point. If anything, the most that was alleged as the allegation was alleged to have taken place against Ms. Rushton would have been cruelty in the third degree, which would be a misdemeanor just because they witnessed it. But there's not even any testimony that they witnessed the incident. And we're talking about children under 10, that a 10-year-old can tell you what, now they saw they heard you say something. It's not as if it was an infant or something along those lines. So for those reasons, John, I would ask that as it relates to the aggravated assaults, the cruelty to children, the pointing the pistol, at least to the extent that there are 4 counts of it, that all of those charges be dismissed for lack of probable cause. Additionally, as it relates to the pointing the pistol, I would just say that's kind of that's duplicative of the aggravated assault. That's what the allegation is in the aggravated assault. You know, I understand officer motivation under the circumstances. I can get it to some extent, but at the end of the day, you know, if you're going to allege an aggravated assault via somebody pointing a pistol to then add 4 counts is a little bit of overdoing it. So for those reasons, John, I would ask that, again, that essentially all the charges as it relates to cruelty to children, pointing a pistol, anything other than the aggravated assault. And I was trying to determine, because I know we had a little an issue with the extent of the specifics of the charges. So I just want to make sure that's everything that I'm arguing.
There was 4 aggravated assaults, a terroristic threat, and it was the 4 pointing the pistols. And I think you addressed all of them.
Oh, all right. Well, I'll leave it there. Like
And
I
I'm
said,
not cutting you off. I'm just making sure you understood that you had addressed them. But if you can continue your argument, I just want to make sure you understood.
no, man, that's pretty much where I was at with it. So no, I don't feel like you cut me off. It's fine. That's pretty much where I was at with it, just making sure that I had addressed all of the allegations.
Okay.
So for those reasons, John, I would ask that the court would dismiss accordingly. Thank you.
Mr. Rogers, Attorney Rogers did a great job here. The state could have brought in additional proof or evidence. They could have had, if they didn't think that the officer was sufficient to talk to the children, which if they're near 10 years old, then they could have spoke to the officer and stated what they saw. However, if the officer didn't feel comfortable, have a kids talk, somebody that's trained to talk to children, work with the officer and interview them right then, or take them there directly after this encounter. That could have been done to support these charges. I think that the argument by Attorney Rogers is well-founded and accurate. Let's see what Attorney Freeman says.
And Judge, I'll start by saying the terroristic threats, there was no corroboration testified to, so I certainly agree with Mr. Rogers with that. I don't see how we can proceed on that one at this time. Certainly.
Well, that's a good for the defense and Mr. Rogers here. She's actually conceding to that charge, so that should obviously be dismissed out of the gate. So now we've got the other charges left.
If more information is provided later, we can always add that back to an indictment. But right now, there's no corroboration. The cruelty to children charges, I believe that the cruelty to children should be cruelty in the 3rd degree. I think cruelty in the 3rd degree is more appropriate given the testimony from Officer Alexander. The children were in the car when Mr. Lane pointed the firearm and stated, "B, I'll shoot you." Officer Alexander testified that the demeanor of the children, that they were crying when he got there. I think at this stage that is sufficient for probable cause for that cruelty in the 3rd degree. The aggravated assault, Your Honor, Officer Alexander indicated that he did not question any of the children. They were all under 10, but they certainly were in the car when Mr. Lane pointed the gun and made the threat. So we are asking that the terroristic threats would be dismissed. The cruelty to children charges be cruelty to children in the 3rd degree, and all the other charges bound over to Superior Court.
Deputy Prosecutor Freeman made good arguments. She's conceding that in the 1st degree is not appropriate and asking for the lesser charge in the 3rd degree to be instituted here by the court. We'll see what the judge does.
Give me one moment.
Thank you, Judge. Judge, may Officer Alexander be excused?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Officer.
Thank you, guys. You guys have a good one.
You too.
Give me one moment. I was taking some time to review my notes based on the arguments made, just to make sure that everything is in line. And I do agree that we will go ahead and I will dismiss the terroristic threats charge. I do think Mr. Rogers is right, it's not appropriate that this is cruelty to children in the first degree. I do not go as far as to say that they should be dismissed outright, Mr. Rogers. I do think that their elements have been met for cruelty to children in the third degree. I do believe that we need to bind those over for that. What was giving me pause was the aggravated assault charges. And so I wanted to recall what I was listening to. And there was evidence that the children were sitting in this vehicle. We're not talking about a big van or a bus. So the idea that these children were not affected just because they weren't old enough to tell the officer what was going on, I don't think that's true. So I do find probable cause at this stage to bind over the aggravated assault on all 4 charges for all of the alleged victims. As far as the pointing a pistol at another, I'm going to bind those charges over as well. You can continue to do your work, Mr. Rogers, to see how y'all can get this resolved moving forward. So I'm going to dismiss the terroristic threats. I'm going to reduce those first degree cruelty to children charges to cruelty to children in the third degree, but the remaining charges will stand. That will be the order of the court. Does everybody understand?
Yes, Judge.
And I do appreciate, Mr. Rogers, you giving me something to think about, but going back through it, I think that that's appropriate at this stage.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Judge, and I believe that's our last case for this morning.
Well done by the attorneys and the judge. I understand the judge's reasoning. Not sure I completely agree, but interesting hearing. See you next time, folks. Thank you.